Hey, it's Kajol. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are going to be talking about some of the consulting questions that you have sent in, specifically around working in consulting, and timestamps are in the description box below if you wanted to get a specific question answered. So let's get started. So the first question, again, was to do with, surprise, dating. Do I date other people in other consulting firms? Which firms do I date them? How many consultants have I fooled around with? Well, my friends, a girl doesn't kiss and tell. Let's just say no one was worth it. But yes, I have dated people who are consultants. Actually, within my firm, I have also had a boyfriend who was working within my firm, not in my service area. And if you're wondering if there's conflicts of interest, usually most of the time you just need to make sure you don't work on a project with that person. I know directors who are dating and married to each other. I know analysts who are dating senior consultants. So it does happen. You end up spending so much time with people that you're working with that sometimes people do date other people, and sometimes you do notice those affairs. And on this note of dating, there's also a question about, do you have friends at other firms, or is there a firm rivalry thing? Well, we are all friends except for KPMG. Joking. No, there's no real rivalry. The only time it probably happens is when you're pitching for projects with a client. Otherwise, what crazy management consultants, consulting humor do is just good fun. Everyone hopefully loves each other. And yes, I do think certain people look down at others depending on which firms you are, but you don't want friends like that. What's my favorite part about the job? It's really selfish. But when you see your work in the news sometimes, or you're like, hey, I worked on that, it makes you feel really proud. And I know it sounds really selfish. I could say the people are great. I'm not going to lie, but the people get tiring after a while to talk to them. So my favorite part is definitely being able to see the results and the impact I make on society, on the client. And I think that definitely is my favorite thing. What's in my PowerPoint juice? There's no vodka in here, I promise. So what are the best and not so good things about consulting? Well, I think some of the best things is obviously the relationships you form, the people that you work with, and how quickly you learn and you step up your game. The not so good things is the pressure and the stress. I feel like sometimes in consulting, you get anxiety, like the pressure to meet deadlines, the pressure to get your work perfect. And sometimes you feel like you're being judged every single thing you do, right? So the stress and the pressure is not too great. And it's just something that you need to manage, or you need to find an outlet for. For me, it's going for walks. For me, it's working on other things which I enjoy, or reading a book and get my head out of the game. And you need to find a way that you turn off and that you find your balance when you're in situations like this. What's one advice you give someone who is starting early in their consulting career? Write down your career objectives and literally work backwards. If you know that in 5 years' time you want to leave consulting and go into product management, make sure you try and get those gigs in your consulting career now. Make sure that you are building the skills you need now and doing projects that you need now to get onto to get those opportunities later on in life. So if you know you want to become like CEO, what do you need to do now to become CEO? And that means that you need to shape your consulting career yourself. So network, make sure you put yourself into, try different things out so you know what you don't like and you like, and don't give up, because there are lots of politics in consulting and lots of partners who want to kind of go with their own agenda. You need to stick up for yourself and don't say yes to everything. Say no so that you can focus on your own stuff, be it in consulting and your career objectives in consulting, or your side hustles that you want to as well. So what's been my best moment in consulting? Now I know how people feel when I ask them what their favorite thing is, because this is really difficult to answer. I have a few favorite moments, a few proud moments. I think one of my proud moments was when some of my work got cascaded to my client, to 4,000 individuals in my client, and I got asked to do it again for the next year because they loved it. Also, when I launched a website for another client, and when you saw all of your strategy to all the discovery work that you do, to actually coming up with designs and building it, and then again launch that end-to-end is, I loved it. Yeah, there's been some pretty fab moments. What's been my hardest task in consulting? I think it's coming up recently. Sometimes you have problems which you can't solve, right? But you have everyone around you can go to who probably have done it before. But my hardest task or hardest thing actually is trying to become a bit more confident and not shy away from things when I feel less confident. So I think I need to become better at managing other people and just taking something and owning it, because when I'm confident about something, I can just do it and I will do it wholeheartedly. But when I'm not sure about something, I will kind of like procrastinate so I don't do it or take longer to do it. And so now I'm putting myself on projects which I have no bloody clue about. I've never done it before, so that I can be able to just, make sure that when there's stuff I don't really understand, I just try, I just approach it. And I could usually do it when there was someone above me and managing me, but now trying to manage my own stuff and manage other people, it becomes really difficult. You feel like an imposter and you just feel really unconfident, I'm not going to lie. So I need to become better at that and become more confident in myself, I think. And stop apologizing. I get told this a lot. I apologize a lot. What's been my most embarrassing moment? Okay, this is really TMI, and you might want to skip this if this sounds a little bit gross, because I am Indian, obviously, and I have really heavy periods. So there was one time I was walking to my client office, and they basically have this big bench where you just stand there and you present. So it was one of those standing desks. When I got there, I felt like a trickle down on my leg, and I saw a whole river going down my leg to the toe for my thigh of my blood. Yeah, that was embarrassing. So thankfully, my team member, I was like, Georgina, get over here, bring me your coat. And she brought me her coat. I went to the loo, and it's just so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing. These things happen to girls, guys. You don't realize this. To share my most embarrassing moment on the internet. What is important to be successful in consulting? Now, the definition of successful is very different to you, to me. Some people, successful means to be promoted a year early. Some people, it means that you get onto the projects that you want to get onto, or you have a good work-life balance, right? Now, I would say most of the time, to be successful, obviously you need to do good work, but that's kind of a given in consulting. Everyone does great work in consulting, or you wouldn't be in consulting. Most of the time it's to do with exposure and visibility. So what is your image? How are you coming across to people? And I am going to do a personal brand video, so watch out for that. But also your exposure. So do you have a good personal brand? And how are you coming across? So do you have a good personal brand to those individuals who are very senior? Because if you do, you can pretty much coast through consulting, get onto the projects that you want to get onto, and literally get promoted when you want to as well. So it's all about, are you the right people? Do the right people know the work that you're doing? How are you coming across to them? And I think if you get that sorted a lot of the time, you can be on a very good path to be successful in consulting. As a consultant, how can we prove our value? For example, not to end up on the bench. It's actually not a bad thing to be on the bench, because you can use that time to work on yourself. But to prove a value, usually it's your work that you do, how you come across to your clients. Can you build client relationships? How is your quality of the deliverables you produce? How do you work in the team? Can you manage other people? Are you developing other people? These are some of the things that allows you to prove a value, but also small things. Do you remember what the numbers were? Or do you remember the process that you took? Can you support your manager in their conversations? What information can you bring to the table? So sometimes knowledge about the industry, knowledge about the outside market, and if you can bring that knowledge in, maybe even from your experiences and some of the experiences that you've had. And don't underestimate the knowledge that you actually bring to the table, your experiences, the projects that you've worked on otherwise, as well as what you've been reading outside. Bring this knowledge and information to the client and the meeting rooms that you're in, because honestly, that's what's going to help you set yourself apart and bring value to those conversations. Is it true that Big Four in London are some of the lowest paid consultants in the UK? Yes. why am I still working for Deloitte? But if you do want to see some of the salaries across the consulting firms in the UK, make sure you check out this video. How hard is it to get a few days off when you're planning to go on holiday? Now, really depends on the project. I have actually 15 days to take off. My project is ending 17th of December, which means that I feel actually guilty asking for holidays for 2 weeks off or to take all of December off because it's like a 2.5 week project. So taking a whole month off the project just doesn't feel right. So I'm going to try and roll over as much as I can, but you should give as much notice as you can. I give notice when I start a project. I'm like, hey, my intention is to take these days off, just FYI. And I don't ask them, is it okay? I'm just like, I'm going to take it off because you deserve your holidays and you deserve having some time away from the hard life of consulting sometimes. I have a director's round coming up very soon. Any advice? Girl, don't ask me. I probably won't help at all. But at the end of the day, I think director's rounds are usually about developing other people and how you've done that, your case in terms of what you are known for, and how you're going to improve your firm's objectives or meet your firm's objectives using your case. I think that's kind of the thing I would say. So what is the best part of working for Deloitte? Okay, so obviously we have socials with our team, with our clients, so free food, free drinks, and they can be great, to be honest. But also sometimes I would say is the discounts we get with retailers with our clients. There was one retailer that we worked with and they sold electrical appliances, and I ended up getting like an 80% discount on a £1,000 like electrical appliance, which I still use today. And yeah, there is something about getting discounts on home furniture or home appliances. I am such a auntie now, I'm not gonna lie. Auntie K is still here. How to have a smooth transition between roles. Now, honestly, one of the projects I did, I am very embarrassed that I really just went quiet when the role ended and I didn't really offboard myself well. Typical etiquette, honestly, is, which I've learned is, 1, send a thank you note, obviously, to your team members, to your client. 2, make sure that you wrap up every single item that you need to do, and things that you haven't wrapped up and still need to be done, make sure you write a list and you cascade it to the most relevant person to know that, probably your manager. Also, just make their lives easier for them. Tell them where everything is, tell them where all your documents are, tell them, you know, the best way to approach certain things, or even better, if you can delegate to people already to do it. So it makes their lives easier. Also, make sure that you send a thank you note to them. Make sure that you also set expectations on, you know, if they need you, how they can reach you, as well as to your new project, how much time you have to actually start dedicating yourself. So when you're onboarding yourself to a new project, make sure you ask for all the documents to help you get onboarded. What is the most used software in consulting? Depends what type of consulting you sit in, my friend. Sometimes it's PowerPoint if you're in strategy consulting. Sometimes it's Excel if you're in finance consulting. And sometimes it's Jira or Confluence when you're in digital consulting. Really depends. Can introverts succeed in consulting? Yes. Yes, introverts can definitely succeed in consulting. I think sometimes they're better in consulting because they take a step back, they process, they listen, whereas extroverts just kind of just go jump in. I also feel that sometimes introverts, they really easily create this sense of trust between yourself and the client, just because that they're much more measured in their responses, whereas extroverts can sometimes come across really fake. So yes, introverts can very easily succeed in consulting, but make sure that you find time for yourself, because sometimes consulting can be a lot of talking, which sometimes I hate. 2, sometimes a lot of people skills that you need. So find a way to offload and just have time for yourself, especially as an introvert. So how many trips does a consultant make abroad in a year? I have managed to go, I think, 5, 6, 7 times across my 5 years in consulting, but I know people who've gone abroad like for the whole year. It really depends what type of project you work for. So people think like strategic projects you end up working abroad. A lot of the time now you actually work from your office because you don't need to be there sometimes, but implementation projects where you need to go live with something, you end up going to that client. Also depends on your client and how they like to work. Sometimes they like you co-locating with them, sometimes they just don't want you there because they don't want to pay for you. So I would say that a lot of of the time MBB firms do fly you out more than Big Four firms. But if you're working in London, if you're working in the UK, you end up working on the vicinity around you. So you probably won't be working in Australia, for instance, because you have an Australia office there. So you'll probably be working in the UK somewhere, unless your client asks you to go to one of the offices in another country, which happened to me. So really does depend. And I know this is like our favorite answer as consultants. It depends. So how do you make a good impression? And I am going to link a video up there on ways to stand out with your manager, which I made a few months ago, which should be really helpful. And another question that came in was, what things should we not do to avoid looking unprofessional? You are not talking to the right person right now, because I think I'm pretty unprofessional compared to what professional is at work. Honestly, the key thing is to be authentic, be who you are, and it might take you time to reveal who you are. It took me 2 years. It took me 2 years to do that, but I used to be very professional at work, and I didn't really feel like I was bringing my whole self, or I didn't really feel like I was bringing my personality, or could be who I wanted to be. But to be unprofessional at work, don't miss deadlines. If you say you're going to do something, make sure you do it. And follow up with people. So that's some of the key things. Obviously, there's behaviors around what you're wearing. I am not the right person because I come into work in hoodies and leggings. There's this, I don't agree with it, but there's this whole culture around how you speak and the words that you use. Now, English isn't our first language for all of us, so I think it's total BS. So some of these cultural norms around professional being what you wear and how you speak doesn't take away the quality of your work. So for me, professionalism is you say what you're going to do, you do good work, and you respect people and the values that you bring rather than what you wear, how you talk. So the next one is, how do you balance knowledge of the horizontal versus the vertical? Now, in consulting, if you didn't know, we kind of talk about the T-shaped individual. So horizontally, you have a breadth of skills and you really do have deep expertise, that T going down in one vertical. So it could be industry, it could be projects, or it could be industry, it could be skills, it could be the type of work you do. So I like to have a broad range of knowledge across different skills and different industries. And I really like to go deep down into the type of work I'm doing, which is proposition design, which is experience strategy. And how I got knowledge about this was just working on different projects which added to my knowledge, because your knowledge really in some sort of way is your experience that you build. You just need to make sure that you refresh the skills that you have, the industries you work in, because it's really easy to kind of forget the consulting skills. I make sure, for instance, that I work on some strategic projects, and then I work on some implementation projects, and then I'll go back to strategic projects to refresh my memory, and then go back to implementation projects. Also, the type of work you do, so make sure sometimes you put yourself into doing more leadership stuff where you can develop those leadership roles, to some more detailed work where you have to build models, where you have to build PowerPoint presentations, so that you don't lose sight of the different types of skills. Find out what's really important to you in terms of what you want to develop, and just make sure that you kind of keep refreshing them based on what you sign up yourself for. How do you work with difficult or hard to work with clients or stakeholders? Well, really generic, but you just need to find something to bond over, and it could be football, it could be having kids, it could be your hate for Marmite. But literally try to take them out of a stuffy boardroom or meeting room and have a casual conversation with them over a coffee. Go for a walk. Literally ask them like, hey, do you want to grab a coffee? And I find that some of the most senior stakeholders who have always had some sort of, how do I say it nicely, stick up their ass, and when they look down at you and you being a consultant or your age, or they thinking that you don't have enough knowledge, once you break these barriers, they will respect you more in the meeting room. Once you just show that you care and understand their point of view and want to know a little bit more about them apart from professionally as well. What are the growth opportunities? So in consulting, most firms have lots of different opportunities. One, training. We have subscriptions to LinkedIn, Udemy, Skillshare sometimes, and your own internal training platforms. So don't waste this resource. This is an insane resource to use to help grow yourself. We also have growth opportunities in terms of roles and structuring yourself. So you can always put yourself onto roles a little bit higher than your current grade to help stretch you and your skills. But also we have access to certifications. So if there's a certification that you want, you can usually make a business case and go for that certification. So CFA, CIMA, ACA, whatever it is. Some firms also have MBAs, and I would say that usually you definitely get tied back to the consulting firm. So if you do an MBA, you get sponsored by your firm. You have to spend, obviously go to an MBA, but when you come back, you have to spend a couple of years at the consulting firm. And I just don't think that's a good gig, to be honest. So if you're going to do the MBA, you might as well switch or use it as an opportunity to pedal yourself into another industry or to a higher position. So don't do the MBA, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion, FYI. How to improve soft skills. Now, there's so many techniques which you can get told in terms of leadership, teamwork, and I really don't think that soft skills you can learn through theory. I really think it's practicing and putting yourself into those situations. So for me, leadership is a big soft skill that I need to improve. I am putting myself into active engagements into that role so that I try to improve it. Now, if I don't feel like I can do it for a certain project, I will take a small extracurricular piece of work which won't really impact a client to kind of test myself before I jump and do a project. And that's just kind of like you're developing your own self slowly. So understand if so put yourself into situations which allows you to do that. How do you have time for social life plus work? Well, somehow I have time to do all of this YouTube gig and see my mates and work. And honestly, since the coronavirus is all to do with setting expectations. If I have plans in the evening now with my friends on, let's say, Tuesday and Thursday, I let my team know on the Monday that, hey, I have plans in these days, but I'm willing to work a few hours extra if needed across the other days. And most of the time, people are now finishing around 6 p.m., 7 p.m. max, just because people really value their lives more and their lives outside of work more. I do think it's a cultural thing in the UK. I think the UK is great and really good at work-life balance. I do think other countries are very different. America. But yeah, it's all about balance. It's all about time management. I know, buzzword. But I try to manage my time and I try to make sure I have time for myself, me and my friends, me and my family, and my work as well. So this was a quick Q&A in terms of working in consulting. I have 2 other videos in terms of trying to move into consulting and trying to exit consulting, which you can watch over here. And that is it for now, and I will see you next week. Toodles!